Hey guys, I'm Alan with Keepical. We're keeping groups together. I wear many hats, but most of you know me as a Mastermind group facilitator and a program director. Thank you for joining me today. And what I'd like to talk about is getting feedback from your group members. You do get feedback, right? I mean, you got to get feedback or you don't know whether you're doing a great job or not. If you have a high dropout rate in your group, feedback's probably the first place you need to be looking. I'd like to relate a little personal experience. Many years ago, I used to be in the construction business. In fact, my first experience being a member of a facilitation group, facilitated mastermind group, was when I was in the construction business. And that group taught me the value of getting customer feedback. And what I'd like to do is relate to you what I did to get that feedback. I found in the years since that the process I went through was really very universal and is great in any environment, whether you run a restaurant or a mastermind group or you're in the construction business or whatever. I will say that getting the feedback was one of the most difficult jobs I had. Sometimes it was even traumatizing, but it was very healthy and useful. So let me just go over some of the questions I would ask, and you'll be able to relate to this. So the first question I would always ask is, well, why did you choose us? Not where did you hear about us, but why did you pick us instead of somebody else, which helps you stay in touch with, well, where are you in the marketplace? Why are these people picking you? So you can do more of that. And then the next question I would ask is, how did your expectations going into this compare to how things have turned out? Oftentimes the response to that can be a real eye-opener. So this is a positive question. I think this is the order of this. The next two questions is important. So I'd always ask, well, what is it that we're doing that you want us to make sure that we know we should keep doing? And so they're going to dig, your interviewee is going to dig for, well, what do they believe you're doing right? And then the next question is the one that we always want to get to is, what are ways that we can improve? Well, now you've given the person a license to sort of be honest with you about something that may be negative about their experience. So you're really taking a lot of notes, coming to understand this, remove yourself like a third person and try to be analytical about what's going on. So then the next question is a really important one. What would you like to add? What haven't you been able to tell me that you think is important that I should know? And then you can kind of go into sort of ambush your interview process or your feedback process to get something that you can use for marketing. What you want to do is ask, is there anybody else that you would like to refer us to? Is there someone else that you think would be a good candidate for the group? In my previous life, it was like, do you know of somebody else that might want some construction work done by our firm? And then winding things down, I always would ask and do as a group facilitator, can I give you as a reference? Can I quote your responses? I think during the onboarding process, it's a good idea in your written agreement to have in there a clause that gives you permission to record testimonials and use that in your marketing. So to move on, what form should it take? Should you do a survey or should you do a live interview? You can probably already tell that I'm sort of have a prejudice towards the interview. I believe a survey, which is something where you just send a form out and then they send it back to you, that is very impersonal. I believe you learn a lot less. Sometimes that's the only practical solution, I believe, in a facilitated group environment, that you could probably always do the interview. So how do you do it? How do you get this thing to occur? The best way is live, face-to-face. So you want to try to get some time together. You get body language. It's very helpful to give context to the responses. The second best would be virtual through something like Zoom or Skype, where you can get that. Maybe it's not quite as charged, but at least there's something there that you can see. Maybe the third best is written like an email. I would really encourage you to try to avoid an email response system, but if that's all you've got available, go ahead. A lot of people like to use some sort of application like SurveyMonkey. That's okay. Again, live is better. And a lot of people will go with and I do this, I'll use a printed form, manual form, where actually in my case, I'll sit there and fill it out while they're talking to me, right? Or an automated form online, I use that also. Keepcool does that, we got a little form we use. And, but that can also be done live, you just fill it out yourself. And so what form should this take? I think that open-ended questions are what they call qualitative questions, or examples I've been given, and those are much better when you have a small group to deal with instead of a large population. Quantitative, which is where most people tend to want to default to first, things like multiple choice, true, false, rate us 1 to 10, that kind of thing. The problem with those types of questions are that you assume that you know that you're asking the right question, and usually you're not. If you ask these qualitative questions where they're just open-ended and they have to write some sort of dissertation, you learn so much more, your response is so much more rich, you can dig so deep. So how often should you survey your members to see how you're doing? You could have an option for them to give feedback at every meeting. We've all attended something like that with a survey form at the end, that kind of thing. You could do it once a month. If your meetings are more often, you could do it once a month. You could do it quarterly. You just have a reminder to go in once a quarter and generate the question. You could do it biannually. Say your agreement or contract with your member runs 1 year. You might go halfway through and have a formal interview. And you could do it once a year, or kind of like in preparation for the renewal. So I would say that it's most common for facilitators that do a good job and get feedback to do it quarterly, biannually, or once a year. I think biannually is a good time frame. You don't burden the member too much, and you get good feedback. And if your agreement with them renews once a year, that gives you a halfway point where you can kind of clean your act up and save somebody that's maybe getting disillusioned. A great tool, and I've been a recipient of this, a great tool when you're approaching that time, when it's time for that person to renew their commitment to the group, that's a great time to do the interview and do the feedback with enough time for you to discover something and maybe make a course correction so that the decision-making process for them to renew, they feel they've been heard and that you've reacted and done something. So that this really, you know, we've all been at work or in the place where they have the suggestion box, and it always goes in with fanfare, and everybody fills out a suggestion and puts it in the box. Well, those places where the suggestion box, it just goes into the hole, and nothing really ever seems to change, pretty quickly the suggestion box quits getting suggestions. Well, what's going on there is that the people, the employees or the people that are giving feedback, they don't actually see change taking place. So they've sort of become apathetic. They say, well, what difference does it make? And they don't think about it anymore. And then after a year or two, the suggestion box collecting dust, they tear it out and say these things are no good. So if you act on your feedback in a way that the person giving feedback sees that they're making a difference, they are energized to continue with feedback and to get buy-in into your operation, because they see that they are contributing in a positive way that makes a difference. So one of the most important things you can do to thank them for their feedback is to show them that they make a difference. Go do something that actually illustrates to them that their feedback did not fall on deaf ears. That's probably the most important part of getting feedback. So I hope you guys got something from today's little video clip. Please do give me feedback on any additional ideas or thoughts you've got. I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me through keepcool.com, or a lot of times you may have discovered this clip in a place where they have a comment section. You can certainly reach me there. I monitor and try to stay in touch with all of you. Thank you very much.